command and has been ill ever since then. He's had a lung biopsy determining pulmonary illness and various other illnesses. Thank you, and we're very happy that Congressman Akin is supporting him. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other witnesses wanted to make a statement? Okay, well, I forgot to introduce us Congressman Akin, but I'm happy to take questions or answers, and I think that the people here probably have their own stories and could answer questions too. Okay. Yeah.
What's your plan for this legislation, Congressman? Will this be a freestanding bill for which you hold hearings, or do you see enough urgency where you might try to amend a bill that's yet this year, or what's your plan?
Well, obviously we're in a bit of a turbulent year from a passing bill point of view. My idea of this was that it was a freestanding bill. I don't know how much controversy would be involved in it. It seemed to me to be pretty much along the lines of freedom of information. It's not mandating anything. The bill, the cost of the bill is $2 million, so relatively speaking, that's just a cost to maintain a register to try to get the medical symptoms and where people were at what time, so we just have some data to work with. But on the other hand, I think there is a lot of opinion on the subject, so I'm not sure. And also we're not sure where the big bills are going to go, like the authorization bill. There's some things hanging out of. So I think for the moment the strategy is we're introducing it as an independent bill, see if we can move it along, and then we'll have to play things by ear, and Senator Udall may be able to help us over the Democrat side in the U.S. Senate.
$2 million a year, is that right?
Yeah.
No, over 5.
Oh, 5 million?
2 million over 5.
2 million over 5 years. Pretty close. 2 million over 5 years. Yeah.
Congressman,
yeah.
Agent Orange and Gulf War Center were also mentioned. And could you remind us, was there ever a resolution in terms of the science of whether those syndromes were real and what caused them? I mean, perhaps someone else could.
There are probably other people better qualified. My understanding is, first of all, Agent Orange was a little bit different than what we're dealing with here, because that was manufactured by a company in the United States, so it was kind of a known chemical properties and all, and obviously it was connected with the dioxin-related chemicals, and so certainly that's hazardous. We don't make those anymore. Gulf War syndrome, I'm not as familiar what the science or medical science was in that. Is anybody up to speed? So I don't know the science of that particularly.
So no one here knows whether Gulf War syndrome was ever conclusively linked to the disease.
Well, I think what they did is they clustered it into unknown illnesses, but still have acknowledged that there's a relation between the exposure.
On the Gulf War illness, there's actually a
Can you step to the microphone? I'm sorry, just so we can.
On Gulf War illness, there's actually a large number of illnesses and associations that fall under kind of the umbrella, some of them explained, some of them unexplained, and much like with Agent Orange, where they're still determining, the Institute of Medicine and other groups are still studying to determine what conditions may be associated with those things. The Gulf War is, again, continuing ongoing study. There are still various theories that are out there in terms of associations as to what may or may not have been the causes, but the main focus has been on treatment and recognizing medically associations with those, and in some cases it can be a cluster of symptoms rather than a diagnosis, which is what made Gulf War illness so difficult to diagnose, because it didn't match normal or known patterns of any conditions or diseases.
Yeah.
Sir, the Institute of Medicine report, one of the issues was that they argued that the Defense Department didn't provide enough data, that there was insufficient data to actually figure out a correlation. Can you comment about, if you've gotten any feedback from the Defense Department regarding this registry, or whether, there may be data existing that hasn't come to light, or just your thoughts on that?
Well, that's a very good point. I did not check whether there was data. I assumed that there wasn't in the previous investigation, and that the people that had done that investigation had access to data. But that is a good question. I didn't specifically ask DOD. I'm on the Armed Services Committee. I didn't ask them if they had any additional data or not. I suspect there was, just a whole lot of stuff that was burned in these pits, and depending what day and what was thrown in there, there's probably a lot of variability. And I think that's why the importance of this legislation. It gives you some type of a way of correlating all this stuff together. And again, you've got, if you have things that are that dioxin related, the symptoms can be very different in different people, and it can occur over a period of time, and really have some bizarre kinds of cases. I had a friend of mine who was in the Missouri legislature lost his son to the Gulf War thing, and he described kind of I won't go into the details of it, but it was something that you just medically, nobody had seen it before. Yeah.
And Congressman, is it clear that there are no burn pits anymore? Because I read a New York Times article that as of last year there were still like 100 of them in Afghanistan. But your impression is that the...
My understanding was it stopped doing that. Then that may be different from an incinerator as opposed to just an open place in the ground where you throw some jet fuel and light the thing off. The incinerators, even in our state of Missouri, we use incinerators to burn up dioxin because you have a controlled and very high temperature combustion chamber, and you can basically break down a lot of dangerous chemicals that way, as opposed to just getting them all airborne and have people breathe them.
There are still Burn Pits 360 has been aware that there are still operating burn pits in Afghanistan, and as far as Iraq goes, there are still some smaller FOBs that still have small burn pits in them.
Other questions? Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for your patience and waiting on the votes, and hope you have a good afternoon. Thank you for all of our witnesses.